Hi, so here's part 2 of using the Boomerang 3 phrase sampler. So let's talk about play styles. Right now, we're in serial sync. If you hold the play style button, it goes to sync free mode. So in the first video, we learned that if you start on loop 1 or 2, it goes to serial mode. Now, in sync free mode, if you start on loop 1 or 2, it goes straight to free mode. And similar to serial sync mode, in sync free, if you start on loop 3, it's sync mode. So let's start with free mode. The difference between serial and free mode is that you can play the loops all at the same time, as long as you start on loops 1 and 2. So you can have them all playing at the same time. The thing about free mode is that they're not tied together in time. So they happen exactly when I press the loops, when I press the pedals. So if you're trying to do something where they're timed together, free mode is not the mode for that. But if you're doing something where it doesn't really matter and you just need to bring loops in, then free mode is perfect. So let's erase all of these and let's talk about sync mode. So sync mode is similar to free mode in the fact that you can have all the loops playing at the same time if that's what you want. The only difference is you start on loop 3, which is now the master loop when you start on it. And so that means that timing-wise, loops 1 and 2 are all connected to the master loop. And I will say that the reverb has nothing to do with the Boomerang pedal itself, it's just the amp that I'm using. So it's the same concept as free, except that timing-wise they're all tied to each other. So you should have seen in that video that when I would press the button, it would blink, which meant that it was armed to be in time with loop 3, the master loop, and that when I ended the loop early for loop 1, it blinked, which meant that it was armed to start playing when loop 3, the master loop, started. So that's pretty simple. That's pretty much all there is to those loops and the different modes. So now the other features of the Boomerang. I'll lift it so that you can read. But you should be able to see decay, volume, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, and fade time. So let's look at these. So if you look at fade, I currently have it on hold. So let's record something. Now, by holding the green bonus button, because it's a dim light, we're going to make this fade out. And so it blinks, and then goes dim once the fade is done. So to control how long you want your fade to be, you used fade time when you're not in bonus assign. If you're in bonus assign, let's hold it down. The 4 is blinking, that's how we know in bonus assign. Moving the fade time actually changes what your yellow bonus pedal is assigned for tap. So we'll get out of bonus assign. So now that the 4 is not blinking, we know that the bottom labels are what we're dealing with. So if I want my fade to be even longer, then I'll make it longer by going clockwise. Let's say I want my fade to be shorter. Notice it's a totally bright 3. Now 4 is dim. Now they're both dim. Now 4 is brighter. There are different levels. It's not just 1 through 10, but you can have a mix between 6 and 7. So this lets you be more specific with how long you want your fade to be. So let's play the loop again. And now let's try fading it with the shorter fade time. And it faded much quicker this time. So the other knobs, we have our volume knobs. So 1, 2, 3, 4 corresponds with your 4 loops. So if you had, let's assign our bonus pedal to be a loop 4. So now this volume knob, loop 4's volume is kind of an 8. If you want to turn it down, we can make it strictly 7 or mostly 7, a little 6. And so that's just, it's kind of ambiguous, but it lets you have a lot of control over your volume. And so this works for all the other volume knobs too. So now this is volume for 3, this is volume for 4, this is the volume for 2, and this is the volume for 1. As far as decay, I believe this also has to do with fade time. So these other things that you see here, we talked about how if you have all your loops off, let's take it off of loop 4. If all of your loops are off and you hold erase, it just erases all of them. That was hard to see because we only had 1 loop recorded at the time. The button that I keep pushing is play stop all, so that's so that they stop at the same time. So let's say that I wasn't happy with my last loop 1. So I don't want to erase, I liked my loop 3, and I liked my loop 2, but I thought that loop 1 was wonky. If I were to hold erase right now, it would erase all 3 of my loops, and that's not what I want. So if I play one of them and hold erase, the blinking lights are my option, so now I can select loop 1, and it only erases loop 1. One last thing about sync free mode that I didn't mention previously. Stacking is different in this mode. So in serial sync mode, when it comes to stacking, it kind of just assumes that whatever you just recorded is what you're stacking on. So for sync mode, sorry, not sync free, also free mode, if I were to start recording, and now I'll record something on loop 2. sorry. Now I tap loop 2, and now we see that stack has a slow blink. That means that it's assigned and will start stacking when you start playing. Now stack ends exactly when you press the button. So even though stack is blinking, there's no arming happening. Fast blink means it's not assigned to a loop, and slow blink means that it is. So I only played my G for 1 bar, while my E was 2 bars. But if we listen, we have a harmony there. So when it comes to the other settings in this fancy wheel we have, once will play a loop once instead of looping it over and over. Octave will play your loops an octave lower, but the catch here is in order to do that, it plays it twice as slow. Reverse will play whatever you record in reverse. And we talked about play, stop, all, fade. Solo, undo, and copy I am more unfamiliar with, but they seem fairly self-explanatory. So I hope this helped learning the other play style of the Boomerang.